All right. So I've been doing a lot of research over the last couple weeks, week or two, and just kind of lightly exploring things. And I don't want to get into things in too much detail. We're going to try to keep things surface level. Everyone knows one of the original games for our household, Pong, right? Everyone's heard of it, Pong. And we have to remember at the time, let's kind of go back. Let's kind of explore. Let's go back to the golden days, around the 60s or 50s. Did you guys know Pong wasn't necessarily like the first game? This was the first popularized game. It's the first game that we could sell to households, but before that, we were making video games. They were called something different, and they were more used in these for like military purposes and in science labs. And they were making these entertainment game kind of things. But at the time, these were on huge machines, like huge, bulky machines to get these to work. It wasn't mass producible. It wasn't marketable. This was a huge thing that they had to take on. And so they were making these things, but eventually Atari asking, how do we get this in people's homes? How do we get this on their TV, right? And they start questioning that. That had to be their battle, right? How do we get this to the TV? And then here, Lord and behold, we start getting the home consoles, right? We get this new medium of entertainment for the household, right? This didn't exist before. You being able to interact with this, with something on the TV, right? And this was kind of unheard of at the time. It was a spectacle. And there comes Pong in the 70s, thanks to Atari really kind of pushing the envelope here. We can also fast forward, then naturally, once they do it and once they pioneer and show it's possible, we got the footsteps of other people, because it takes one person to open that doorway, right? And then we have, Midway? Coming in with Asteroids? Everyone knows that one, another classic. Asteroids! Classic, right? Everyone's played Asteroids or heard of Asteroids, right? Another classic. So notice how we're taking a step further. Here becomes the popular Pong and doing something, a spectacle, literally kind of like revolutionary. And then we change the envelope. We change the envelope, right? Now, all of a sudden, can you imagine just being locked to going up and down, which at the time is a spectacle, right? We would not question it, right? That's all we know. And then these guys saying, hey, what if you could fly around, right? What if there's these entities flying around? Things that you can interact with. And we still have the high score chaser element here, right? Almost the dawn of the high score chaser, right? Where in Pong, it's the score of going back and forth and playing with someone, but now all of a sudden, Asteroids, and you're playing this high score chaser, right? Kind of by yourself, like the beginning of high score chasers. Remember that this is important because these guys are pioneering and creating something new. And remember, it's the spectacle of even playing something in the arcade or on the home console. Remember, this is not normal. These guys are, oh my God, will this even be successful? This is daring. This is new technology, right? Remember, they don't have today's gamer brain of I just go on Steam and download something. This did not exist. That concept did not. Download a game? What is that? Remember, we're going way, way back on our tube televisions, right? We're going back. We're talking in the 70s here. So the spectacle and how daring they had to be to create something new, but also on this new technology, right? We did not have that at the time. This must have been phenomenal to experience. Could you imagine? Before this even existed, chasing these high scores and stuff and just wanting to keep one-upping and doing better. And again, fast forward, the arcade age is coming, right? I want to go a little bit further. So now we have Asteroids, and we're moving around, and we're having high score chasers and things like that. And slowly comes the 80s, and we're about to get to our big boom, right? We're about to get to our big boom. And we can see how things progress. We had the next battle. I don't have a picture for you guys. Let me pull this up. Where did we go next? Well, this is a classic. Pac-Man, the age of color. All of a sudden, there's a new spectacle. There's a new battle we're having, right? They're pushing the envelope and making you want something new. Little Nintendo comes in, or no, Namco, right? Little Namco, around the beginning of the 80s, created Pac-Man. We now have color. We now have color. And we have these entities, these bad guys that are an entity. We're not just shooting asteroids and things like that anymore. We have these entities. And remember, not only did we have the color spectacle, right? And just the gimmick or spectacle of color, but we have the game pushing. We still have this high score chaser element, but now we have these entities, these AI that we're interacting with and running with. And remember, at the time, we had a lot of enemy identity. These characters had almost personality. They had a story to tell, right? People would fear the red. People would fear the pink, you know, and be maybe confused by orange, right? Running away from you. They had a lot of identity at the time, right? Remember also the sound design, right? Picking up these power-ups and feeling something, going from fearful to getting a power pellet and now chasing them down. And this, remember, they're pioneering here, and it went on. Today, everyone knows about Pac-Man, right? But they didn't have a game to copy. They didn't have a market to say, hey, the market's unpredictable, or we need money. We can't take risks. We should just make another Asteroids with color. Right? But this took something. This took a lot of something. They didn't have a game to necessarily mimic, right? So again, I'm just looking at the common denominators here. Let's look back in history, and that's what we're doing here. Let's not take what they say for face value. Let's see what the history has told us. Here we come. Did you guys know Pac-Man also I think it's in its first year, don't quote me here. Again, the numbers are not the important part here. But I believe in its first year, it made about $1 billion in quarters. Can you imagine? Everyone needed to get some of this. What is this experience? What the hell is this? Telling their friends about it, maybe competing, you know, gotta go to the arcade machine and play this, right? $1 billion. Whoa. Let's keep going. So now we have the spectacle of color, right? We have the centipede. Right? I mean, one of the games that I love here, we're playing with a trackball, and all of a sudden we have almost Asteroids where we're controlling a character, but we have these entities and all these enemy identity. Notice how we go further. More enemy identity. We have the spiders, we have the mechanics and things falling down, and a lot more skill-based and very challenging. Our input is a goddamn rollerball, right? It's a trackpad, a trackball. Crazy. You can see how they're pioneering, right? We didn't even talk about the Space Invaders and stuff, which is kind of like known as the godfather of the arcade games, right? Space Invaders with the little platforms and you're shooting up. And these are just really, really cool concepts and enemy identity and all these things. Let's go further. These guys had to pioneer. They didn't necessarily have a game to copy. We're going to fast forward about a year now. Remember, now we have the spectacle of color, and we're starting to also battle getting consoles into people's homes. We want them adopting this idea because a lot of times they would go to the arcade cabinet. That was the normal. You would go to the arcade, these big bulky machines, but now we're trying to get people to pay equivalent of $500 at the time. Maybe in today's currency, it's about $500 in their time. It was very expensive to buy these home consoles to play at home, right? And we have Nintendo. Everyone knows freaking Nintendo, right? So Nintendo's saying, yo, let's get these home consoles. Let's get it. Around 81, is it? Around 81. Now Nintendo coming in, now having to battle with color and where the market is going. Color, trying to make a home console and taking the risks to push that, and saying, how can we push further? Right? What could we do here? Let's push this. Now notice how I'm looking between the lines, because now I'm in the future. I get future brain to look back. They did not have this. And I'm looking back and how they think, and notice how it was never, well, let's just do what the market wants. Let's just take the same thing. But instead they take concepts and try to pioneer. So here we have Nintendo taking risks again and being known, fast forward, forever. Nintendo is a name in gaming that everyone knows. Even if they don't play video games, everyone knows Nintendo. So fast forward to the NES, and maybe even before that, right? What was that console before the NES? I don't remember. So 81, let's fast forward. What is their battle? Oh my god, it's not just high score chasing anymore. They introduce color, we have the high score chasing, but they introduce story. They introduce story. Wow. Do you guys see the start of what's happening? This ripple effect? And it was so cool. I was looking back and learning about this, but seeing what it must have taken for them to question that. Taking what was popular at the time and questioning it just a little bit, right? Coming up with a mechanic and saying story. This son of a plumber, right? And this gorilla stealing, who wasn't Peach at the time. And again, later changed their name to Mario, but it was originally Jumpman, this plumber. And it starts with a P. What is it? It's not Peach. Paraline? Not important. Anyway, she gets captured and we need to save her. And we have the introduction of color now. We have high score chasing elements because remember, this is what's popular and this is what people know for progression. And now story. Oh, what if we show them that? What if we say they actually want characters that they can kind of relate to and tell a story about, right? What if they're here to save the day? And you can see this trope started. The player is here to save someone, save the day. Do you think that they asked the market, well, we don't know that that's hot right now. We don't know that's going to make money. We don't want to take risks, right? The market's the market's volatile. We have a huge job here. We're trying to sell this game and bring it to the home market. Do you think somebody told them okay? Do you think, right? Remember, they're also battling technology here. They don't have what we have today. They're battling technology. So this is where the face of technology is also telling them no. Today, we just blame the market telling us no, right? Imagine them. Unstable market they don't know, unknown market. Technology literally battling them and what they're even capable of doing. They don't have, oh, we think today, oh, we just pop open a program like Unity, right? What do you think they had to deal with? But notice how they question the norms, and now they're introducing story. Shoutouts to Nintendo back in 1981. We go further. Now we're getting the boom here, right? And the NES is coming, right? What year was the NES, chat? All right, and this is where it's going to start to get juicy. Around 84, we have Duck Hunt, right? And I just wanted to like snippet some of these games because I try to think of Duck Hunt being made on today's market where we say that we can't take risks, we can't do anything, we have to just copy games. And to me, it sounds like an excuse. It sounds like we're scared to do anything and we're defending ourselves, right? We don't know the market. We're gonna make another Survivor-like, right? We need money. We need money. It was always about money, right? It's what I'm seeing here, right? These companies needed to justify getting these home consoles not only being about money, they had to prove to you that you wanted to buy one of these consoles. It wasn't just like you go on a website and download something. They had a lot more at stake here. 84 Duck Hunt. And again, I wonder, these guys made Duck Hunt. And I'm wondering where their influence came from and the market telling them, okay, right? Where imagine today's day and age, them trying to make Duck Hunt. Who told them okay? Who told them, talk about a market that they don't understand. They sold a game about shooting goddamn ducks. That game went on to make, let's see, at the time, or I don't know if this was a year or two. How long this is tracking here? 28 million? 28 million? Duck Hunt? Interesting. Who gave them the okay for that? Who told them the market wanted that? Let's keep going. This is where things get really interesting. So now remember, day and age, we're getting people to invest in the home console. People want more of this stuff. The spectacle. Now we're in color. Now players are tasting story. They can relate to this player, right? We have like people that like we can almost make them an icon, right? Oh, this Pac-Man, yeah, I know that guy. Or like Mario, right? We can talk about it. There's an entity here. We're not just a spaceship flying around. We have people in their role. They want to save the princess, right? Want to save the princess from Donkey Kong, right? Jumpman. We have these characters now. We have story. We go further. Leave it to Nintendo again. 86. Ooh, 86. This one's important. This one's important. We're going to talk about people pioneering, and we still copy them today because of their work pioneering. You guys know what game that is? Oh my god, we love this genre today. Fast forward. Whoa! Who did they wait to shepherd here? Who did they wait for to tell them okay? We have Metroid. Now remember, keep in mind, this is so daring. Now we have story. And games are starting to incorporate story, and they're developing further, right? And we have the development of color, right? Color being very important, right? But until now, remember, we have this concept of that everyone's adopting these screens, right? We have a screen where we're playing Pac-Man. We have this screen where we are, you know, the shooting asteroids, or the screen now where we're saving the princess and climbing this screen. I can't imagine where they began with this concept, not only not being feared by technology limiting them, but we started to question a lot of things. What if we added exploration? Or dare I say backtracking? Because now they can explore. Let's go further. Let's not just sell them on being able to leave screens and explore and go on this journey. What if we made a reason for it? What if we also created a reason, since they can go forward, that they would want to come back and actually travel and explore in this place? The dawn of what we know today as Metroidvania. They didn't have a genre that they knew they could develop in. They pioneered. They looked at what was popular and started to question if they can change things. They were very daring. This is known as one of the first games to have a female protagonist. It goes further. Exploration, backtracking. They questioned even more. Varied endings. I think this was one of the original games to speedrun, but they created that space and concept because they had different endings based on how fast you also completed the game. Oh my god, it's like a ripple effect into what we know today as speedrunning almost too. Do you see how there's ripple effects for them trying things? They're being artists and they're taking what people love. Also notice here that it's not a conversation about high score. Wait a second. You're telling me they took a big risk here and made it this super expansive game, but the one thing they knew that people bought, and again, technology was very expensive at the time, was high score chasing. People want high score chasing, so you make a high score chaser. What is this? What must have that have taken for them to do that and have the cojones to make this daring game, which pioneered, and now wait, it stood the test of time once again. You know, we talk about shepherds, right? The people that are willing to learn and toy with what people want and change it and expand. Maybe they thought that they could get away without high score and teach people that there was a different thing to pull them forward, the exploration. And they said, hey, we're being very daring in other fronts. There's a new spectacle here. What if we can get away without high score? What if we get away with this protagonist running around, gaining power-ups, exploration, areas that we couldn't access, but now we can access later? Could you imagine feeling that for the first time? You couldn't get that anywhere else. That was a new experience that you could not get anywhere else. And the market did not tell them okay. The market did not tell them okay. They understood the market and went further and tested something new. They taught the consumer that they wanted something new. Now we don't not only have story, but we have exploration. Daring female protagonist? Nobody said that was okay before that. That was very daring, right? That was a huge twist. Varied endings? What is this? Oh my god, we also had something else new here. You guys ready for this one? You guys know this one. No, again, I can't preface enough how important them taking this risk was. Because guess what? Fast forward 2025, whatever, and we're making Metroidvanias to a T because of something that they did and a risk that they took in 86. And they question, what if we don't need high score? What would exploration look like? And this development of a character. And then we also have to make sure that we make it in color because that's what the market wants, right? Wow. That's so powerful. And we still use that today because they told us it's okay. Let's keep going. Let's talk about some other people that pioneered. We have the high score chasing games. We have the arcadey games. In 87, right after Metroid here, we have Double Dragon. Again, pioneering. What is this? An arcadey game. We got the high scores and things like that. We could play co-op. And it's a beat 'em up. The dawn of the age of beat 'em up. This didn't exist before. It wasn't a game that they were copying. It wasn't Survivor-like, and we'll just make another one. It was concepts, right? But they were introducing what people want. They were telling them, hey, you want to try this. This is fun. You're moving around in this space. You're progressing in space, right? It wasn't a screen and then another screen, but like this storytelling, right? Also following the footsteps of what Nintendo introduced with Donkey Kong story, right? You still had a story here. It went with the same trope, the struggle of saving someone. We're saving the princess, right? And they followed the same tropes here because we taught us that, oh my God, let's learn from the market. It's not just color and high score. Let's make the characters relatable or you cared for them, right? Like you would care in any story or movie. We're gonna save the princess, right? We're beating up the bad guys, right? So we have these mechanics, we have story, we have color, right? We have things that we want to get in. We could play this one with a friend. What the hell is going on here? Oh my God, we're trying out these new things. A new space. I want more of that. They're showing me a new dish that I really want to taste. Ooh, Double Dragon, starting the beat 'em up genre that still lives today. That still lives today. Who did they get to copy? Right? The other games around their time, you know, we got Donkey Kong and Metroid. Woohoo! Interesting. Not playing the same game, changing it up, showing us something different here. I love it. Let's keep going. This is my favorite, and I think this is the most important, and this is the thing that we're going to focus on here for the rest, is the next step here. Again, around the same age here, we had somebody extremely, extremely daring. And I grew so much respect doing this research for this person. And I did not have this last week. This last week of research, I gained so much respect for a pioneer. The person is called Yoji Horii. Yoji Horii. I'm probably saying their name wrong. Do you guys know who this is? Yoji Horii. I gained oh my God, the amount of respect that I've gained and the amount they must have pioneered. And this is my favorite lesson so far here. Let's learn about Yoji Horii. Yoji Horii came along, and I believe a Japanese developer, and they wanted to kind of popularize and play more with this RPG genre, or we're going to call it genre, these RPG games. He was playing these dungeon exploration games. Now, remember, at the time, these were extremely nerdy. They were based on Dungeons and Dragons, right? And we had games at the time like Wizardry. This was one of his influences, actually. And he would play these games, and he had so much fun playing them. Now, remember, at the time, when we think today, we're like, oh, you just play a game. But remember, they were a lot more complex because we're also pioneering controls and user interface, right? We take that for granted on these home consoles now, and also becoming more accessible. Remember, they have to pioneer. How do we allow the player at home to play these things? But at the time, these were different, right? At the time, these were super complex, right? Think Dwarf Fortress or something. You need your keyboard. You need to do kung fu moves on your keyboard keys, right? To issue commands and things like that, right? So these games had a huge learning curve, right? A huge learning curve. They were super nerdy. And Hori loved these games, right? He thought they were so cool. He loved the fact that you can kind of feel yourself in these games and take care and want to get further and further and level up and power up, right? And he loved that. And he went on and said, yo, I want to take these concepts. He was also playing this detective game at the time, a very old kind of detective game. And at the time, he tried an experiment, and he said, hey, what if I can take this detective game, but then also make the detective explore this dungeon, but also have a user interface that's based on text, right? Because he thought that was a really cool concept at the time. So he had this top-down detective game, and then a screen like this, where you would... And remember, this was new. Nobody on the market was just saying this was okay. Right? Because remember, before that, we were flying around asteroids. We're moving around Pac-Man. We're moving around Metroid. This is a new concept. All of a sudden, we have text on the screen that's saying things like attack or use a spell. Remember, this is a phenomenon, right? Nobody on the market was saying okay at the time, or this is what's hot, right? It took them something. He knew that somebody pioneered here and took risks. Let's keep going. So he played this and he loved it. Now he tried this detective game and he saw that it works. He saw that this could work, this face interscreen thing. And he said, okay, I want to make something. Here comes the age in '86 of a little game called Dragon Quest. Dragon Quest. I gained a lot of respect for Dragon Quest. You guys know I'm usually not an RPG kind of guy, but I grew fond. Fast forward, Dragon Quest. So he had inspiration of this text-based UI, and he wanted to go further here, right? Again, he knew that he wanted to popularize RPGs. He wanted to make them more popular, but remember, the market was saying otherwise. What has been done before, this is how you make RPGs. That's how we think today. Well, this is how you do it. Let's just do it like them, right? We'll just change what they're doing. Remember, today's thoughts. Now, this is back in the day. Technology is an adversary. All these things are adversaries. They're pioneering, right? They didn't have what we have today. Oh, you just do what they do. So at the time, RPGs were telling them, no, this is super complicated. It's not mass marketable. That's what the industry told them. That's what the people before them told them. No, this is a complicated genre. This is super nerdy. It's not mass producible. It's not for the masses, right? Well, here comes Yoji Hori questioning that and saying, I love this. What if I can change that? What if it doesn't have to be that way? How do I pioneer something different? How do I take what people love and what I love, but how do I do it differently, or how do I do it better? All of a sudden, he had some concepts that he knew he needed. He knew that his first objective and the most important thing to popularize this is he needed to simplify. He needed to simplify. He said we cannot have complicated controls. So he knew that the market needed not complicated controls. I need people playing this on their home TV. I need people to play this maybe on a home controller. I cannot have this keyboard stuff. I need to simplify. Cool. So he had a clear directive of how to go further. Not what the market said was okay, but what he thought he could make better. Saying, nah, I get that you guys like that, but I'm going to teach you something better. Let me simplify because I'm going to show you something new here, right? So I need to simplify controls. He also needed appeal. So he wanted to also make a mass appeal. He also knew he couldn't do this by himself. He went on and hired the artist of Dragon Ball. The artist of Dragon Ball, because he knew that he had this style that can show power, that can kind of just transcend time. And he could also have this cute, approachable style where it was almost what we call chibi today. It was like very cute. Oh my God, these sound like cool recipes for more mass appeal, right? So he was very methodical. And remember, at the time, nobody said this was okay. No, the market didn't say, oh, look, everyone's making them. You make one. right? He had to challenge what the market was doing. RPG, but complicated. How do I make this more approachable? Let's keep going. Random battles. Walking around and getting random battles. Let's go further. This is complicated. Again, I'm going to try to explore this very carefully, how daring this guy was. He also knew for mass appeal that we had to, what we talk about today, try our best not to invite confusion. And he also studied the market, and he knew he needed a clear directive, a carrot, if you will. So one of the things that he came up with is open world. He started there, and he said, I'm going to give them a clear directive, because this is very daring. Nobody's just making these open world games, right? So how do we structure that? How do we do that so that the player can get into this and not just be overwhelmed, right? And a lot of these RPGs, I know that they're very overwhelming at the start. How do I battle that? So he had a very cool concept. I'm going to show the finish line in the opening screen so that the player has a clear directive. Whoo! How gigabrain of a designer do you have to be? Remember, this doesn't exist. This guy became the godfather of non-linear games. Fast forward. Now, nobody was calling him that at the time. It didn't exist. We didn't have these genres. He was doing something crazy that nobody's done, that he didn't know anyone would like, right? But he did it methodically. He said, okay, if we're going to do something new that we don't know the market likes, we got to do it smart. And we know we need to simplify. We know we have to break confusion and help guide the player, right? And we're going to put the finish line, this castle that they need to get to, in the opening shot. As soon as you get on the world map, you see your directive. God damn, what a freaking genius. He also played with this idea because, remember, they were doing something daring. Distance equal difficulty, because remember, now all of a sudden the player can go where they want, so they have to design further, right? This is new. They didn't have anyone telling them okay, right? Distance equal difficulty. So as you would get further, because the player can do what they want, we needed something there to kind of push the player and say, hey, this is a harder area, you're not ready for this. So they said, hey, here is creatures that will beat you up if you're not ready. You have to prepare yourself. But this also pushed the envelope and the elegance, right? The synergy of them wanting you to feel like you're in the game, because that's what he loved from his influences, right? All of a sudden, it's not about putting a quarter in and starting over. Now it's more forgiving. Remember, it's going to be on a home console now. So now when you die, you just go back to a checkpoint. This was new at the time. Remember, the arcade games were saying different. So remember, he's developing new, but he knew he wanted it to be more approachable. So this was very important for him. So he said, okay, when you die, you don't just start over. And it's going to be about the progression of your character. You're going to care about this character. I need people to care about this character. He wanted players to associate themselves with the hero. So power progression was important, and this was unlike Super Mario at the time. He wanted the emotional attachment with the story and you caring about your character, which Super Mario at the time said otherwise. In Super Mario, you die, you start the level over, and there's no power scope, right? You're not with Mario as you go from a little weakling to stronger in a story throughout the game. You're always Super Mario. He did not want this, right? He's battling that. So notice here how he's battling what the market is eating up. It's so beautiful. The answers are right there, right? So here I am questioning it with fast forward 30, 40 decades, and I have a market that's eating it, like telling each other otherwise. No, just do more of the same of what they're eating. Everyone was eating up Super Mario at the time. It's the hottest thing. And this guy says, nah. Yoji Horii says, nah, not on my watch, but we have to do it carefully. He wanted players to associate themselves with the hero, so we had power progression. You would be able to go into towns. You would be able to sell loot. You would be able to get loot and acquire loot. And as you got stronger, you could go venture out further. So now all of a sudden we care about our loot. What is this concept that we can't get anywhere else? I have this loot. I'm delving out into this mysterious land. I don't have the game gating me with blocks or anything. What is this? And now I want to get stronger and I want to go further out and further out. And I have a clear directive and I know where I'm trying to go. And all of a sudden he had these recipes for mass appeal, right? And that was his main objective that he had to tackle very carefully. And remember, this guy went down in history as the first, like, the pioneer of non-linear games. He also went further and he said, okay, well, I need a way to show that the game is getting harder, right? They would go out and they would run into creatures, but it felt bad if they just are fighting an easy creature and they take another step and now they're fighting harder creatures. This invisible line, right? That would be kind of weak design. And remember, at the time, they only had the science and research of other games that were doing other things that weren't necessarily saying this is okay, but he wanted to be smart. So what did he do? He used the bridges. God damn, what a freaking genius, so elegant. He used bridges to break up area. So when you go over a bridge, you were almost, again, literally, your character is going into a new area, and then they could sell the concept of it's getting harder, but in a non-linear way. So they used bridges as a tell. Freaking genius! Don't eat quarters. Dying is just a minor setback. Again, learning curve needs to be easier because I know, and I'm doing research, that in all these other RPGs, it was steep to get into. Remember, this guy's saying, I could do this better. I could do this better. The market is saying no. The market is saying no. The market is saying these are complex. That's just how it is, Yoji Hori. This is just a complex genre. I'm sorry. Wow, that sounds like things that we still say today. Fast forward decades. Oh, maps and action RPGs just suck. Duh, get over it, dude. It sucks in Path of Exile, right? Of course it sucks here. That's just how it is in this genre. Metroidvanias, that's just how they are. And then other devs eat that up and they go, yeah, that's what the consumers want. Interesting. We have all the technology in the world here. We have easier access. We don't have to worry about getting games into people's homes now. They can just download them. We start making conversations about money and playing it safe. And yet these people 30 years before us are pioneering and doing the work for us and creating the footsteps. And this is what we do. This is the conversations we have. Now here Hori is saying, yo, RPGs are saying, no, not mass producible, not for the general public. These games are steep. You have to grind for hundreds of hours. You got to be a nerd. You need to know keyboard kung fu. And he's saying, nah, what if I change that? Here's some important steps. I got to make sure that the learning curve is accessible. How do I do that? Okay, deaths are going to be less severe. You don't start over. We don't need to eat quarters, right? Also, with the genre and the new medium that they're in, they get to try these things out. Quick level ups when you start, because he knew that these games were complex. I want to give the player more tools and power at the start. So he said, oh my God, this sounds like a difficulty curve that we use today. Thank you, Hori. You level up faster, get attached to your character, start gaining power, and then as you get further, it slows down. Oh, that sounds like some kind of method that we use today, right? Leveling up faster, and then it slowly gets slower as you move on. Oh, the pioneer, the goddamn godfather. He also knew that we needed a clear final goal. We talked about that, right? Right in the opening shot, clear final goal. You can't get lost. You can see it from the start. I also knew that it was important not to lock the player. I did not want to lock the player. So he made monsters that you would then prepare for, right? And they would kind of tell you should not be here. But then also the player wanted to grow, because if you have a blockade here, and now remember, they found a new way to do blockade. In other games, it would just be a wall or a screen, where here he needed an organic blockade. So we had scary monsters. Oh my God, I need to prepare for that. So there was a natural progression, but there was still a wall, right? But they did it organically. They did it in a new way that the market wasn't ready for. Used bridges for power gap, non-linear gameplay, and hired the Dragon Ball Z designer. See, so this guy grew a lot of respect for me because at the time, RPGs were saying other things. And this was a very, I think it was like a very Western idea. And he wanted to kind of bring it over, right? And he wanted to show something different. And the amount of risk and market research he must have done to be that smart. Because I have to remember that he didn't have all the tools. I would not even be able to do that, right? I study today's market, but I could do what I can do because I have thousands of reference points now, right? In the saturated market, I have thousands of reference points. For this guy to be this smart and this daring, because at the time, that wasn't the conversations. Nobody was like, oh, you just do what they're doing. Just do what they're doing. That's what they want to eat. They never stopped to do that. They were always ready, like, yo, you're going to love this now. You're going to love this now. You're going to love this now. Oh, let's pioneer this concept. Oh, what if RPGs didn't have to be steep and complex? What if I can change that? What if I can show them something different? And all these guys that pioneered Metroid, playing with what if you weren't just locked into a screen? What if you wanted to backtrack and travel around and explore, right? What if you had a character that you're now attached to? And they questioned these things, and it led to breakthroughs that influenced us today. Decades later. These guys don't know that yet. Decades later. And it reminds me of this modern gaming where we have these people that are doing new things and saying new things that we were going to like, right? We have the, Pioneer today, and we have these Slay the Spire. We have these Luck Be a Landlords. Do you think somebody was telling this guy, yo, you need to make a slot machine game? That's hot right now. No, but guess what? They influenced, and now look. Now we have the Balatros because somebody made a ripple effect like Luck Be a Landlord, right? And now we have these other games, but these designers are adopting these concepts that like, oh, we can't do that. We have to play it safe. We need money. And we just eat this up and we don't even question it, but history tells us otherwise. These guys all pioneered, and that's why we're using that here today. And it wasn't because the market wanted that. Oh, Metroidvanias are just hot. They sell good. Why would you change what's not broken? Do we just spit on the face of everyone that led before us? These guys were playing with concepts, and that's why we adopted them today. These guys were daring. They did market research. And they questioned ideas. They questioned these tropes. They always tried to play with new concepts. All of this stuff really hit me at home, because I know that on today's market, we make other reasons, right? We don't talk about that kind of stuff. We don't talk about these guys creating art forms and giving us new things and new worlds to live in. We talk about how we need to get the bag. We talk about how we have to play it safe and just give the market more of what they want. History tells me otherwise. It was always about money, but that did not stop them from being smart and trying out new things. So the point of today's Game Doctor seminar is to really listen when we talk to each other and we come up with these ideas and tropes and we try to sell ourselves that we can't be creative. There is fundamentals, right? And also keep in mind that at the time, there was a different spectacle, right? The spectacle of going from black and white to color, or the spectacle of now graphics and going from, Mario or Pac-Man going to Mario 64, and then PlayStation bringing in Spyro, and right, there's this spectacle. There's this huge phenomenon, right? Now, as we continue to evolve and we start having other conversations, that's not the spectacle of graphics, right? We have the spectacle of VR now, right? Going from 3D and going to N64, and now we have VR today, right? And we always have this new space, but there's also other ways to evolve, and there becomes fundamentals, right? It's not just about doing something and breaking a new spectacle, but it's doing it well. Right, and you can see today's day and age, we can't even get games that can learn the basics that the pioneers before us led, right? And how to make UI more accessible. Remember that this was always a question to them. But today I see it less of a question more than ever, right? We just make this new gimmick or this new idea, but we can't even get our controls right. This was so important to them at the time because they needed to. They needed the person at home to be able to pick this up and just play it and be accessible and understand. Today we have these concepts and these ideas and these demos, but you could see that they did not do the work to do the research that it's approachable and the player can just pick it up and it's what they're used to, right? And this is what we teach here. How many games do we play where the idea is good, but they can't execute on it, or the controls are terrible and it's not up to market standards? So we wonder why the market is versatile, or we work really hard on this game and it's not successful. But look, since the dawn of time, that research was always important. It was very, very important. So as we do the work today, is it really that we can't introduce and show people something that they will like better and teach them something that they will like, but also that research and being very conscious of this is what we need to do to pull this off. Hori didn't have an okay to make this non-linear game. He didn't know that this was going to be a phenomenal idea or that people were going to eat this up, but he also did it very methodically. He didn't just wing it and say, well, I'll just sell this non-linear game and people will eat it up, right? It's something new. But he made sure that his fundamentals were there. He made sure that there was concepts that the average person could understand. He was very meticulous and careful with treading a new path. So I'm here to challenge you guys today to get back to being indie if you are an indie dev and create, but do it smartly. Do it with research, right? Do your research, do your homework, because you can do new things and show people better, because all these games that you're getting influenced from that stand out and did something really cool, it's probably because they pioneered. It's probably because they did something really cool and daring that the market didn't just say, okay. Look at any game that stood out, FTL, right? All these people that we, you know, your Dead Cells, your Spelunkies, your Binding of Isaacs, all these standout games that influence us today. Well, they did something, right? It wasn't just making another Survivor-like because that's what the market likes. No, you're just you're picking something comfortable because you got the okay and you know it works. But that's not what makes the greats, right? And that's not how we got influenced back in the day. You didn't see that back in the day, right? So I dare you guys to question those things. And I hope today's journey through the history of gaming and stuff, you could see how design was always something that they would question and be daring and try out new ideas. And I think history tells us that more than ever. And let's not be confused about what they tell us today. It was always a story of money, and it was always being smart to what the market wanted, but introducing them to new dishes that they would like better. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, and I hope you guys enjoyed.